What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time here on a Saturday afternoon or evening. The second to last Saturday Crunch Time of the baseball season. I am Britt Devine, joined by just STL Card Fans 84, Justin Van Zuden. Justin, it's the season's drawing to a close. Baseball still grinding on. We can do that. But just me and you. Everyone else is like, nah, we're not doing baseball anymore. We're all focusing on football. You write the article. You got to have someone else to do the show with. Here I am, my friend.
It's it's a little bit of a grind in baseball once you get 6 months into the year, but it's the end is in sight. It's been a little bit harder to grind through September for me this year because my team is so bad. I'm at least used to like the Cardinals being relevant, so I'm gearing up for playoff baseball and stuff. But this year, I am most definitely not doing that. So I do kind of like the slate here tonight, though. I think there's some interesting stuff to talk about, interesting bats, interesting pitching. So even though there's only a few weeks left in the season and some teams are kind of falling out of the race, and a lot of times we don't have as many night games on Saturdays, we do have a healthy number of games tonight, and I think this is an interesting one.
Yeah, you can. You've got the core slate on DraftKings. You don't have that on Fanduel. You can spend up on pitching. You can go cheap on pitching. You can spend up on bats. You can go in the mid-tier on bats. We'll get into all of that in just a few minutes. First off, just because TJ isn't here doesn't mean we don't need the likes. I do have some football. I don't have any baseball bets. But at the end of the show, once we're through baseball, get the likes to I don't know, give me a reasonable amount, 50, something like that. I'll throw a couple bets from scores and odds up from the football weekend for you. And if you are a new sports bettor in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. All right. Did you guys pay attention? And you don't have a FanDuel Sportsbook account. You probably do, but if you don't, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, plus $100 off NFL Sunday ticket when you bet $5 on any Week 2 game. So a good promo if you don't have a FanDuel Sportsbook account. Love FanDuel for sponsoring the show. They could have a little better touchdown odds. They did great for the home run odds this year, Justin. The touchdown odds could be a little bit better. Maybe they'll I've checked a couple so far for Week 2. A couple I like, but DraftKings maybe had a little bit better for Week 2. Anyway, just a personal thought. Let's talk baseball. Pitching. Couple big names, right? We've got Corbin Burnes going up against Washington. Maybe not so many strikeouts. I don't know, 7, 8 innings, 9 innings, complete game. Sounds pretty good. Tyler Glasnow, lots of strikeouts. Baltimore fading a little bit as the season comes to a close here. You've got some cheap plays too on FanDuel. What's your preference? Are we spending up and avoiding the ultra high price bats, or are we going cheap and getting all those guys you actually want to play?
Yeah, I think you can go either way, really. I mean, I think it is a top 3. Kershaw is just not going to make the cut for me tonight. He's only made 1 start in 3 weeks. Has had a shoulder issue. The Dodgers are going to be careful with him. There's no reason for them to push Kershaw. So Kershaw is out for me. But the other 3 guys, Glasnow, Lopez, and Burnes, I think are all in play. Glasnow obviously has the toughest matchup, but Baltimore's been struggling of late. I think Burnes is the best combination of safety and ceiling is probably Burnes. 8 no-hit innings his last start. Washington, while they don't strike out, they also, put the ball in play early in counts. And, you could see Burnes pitching basically the whole game as the Brewers kind of take control of the NL Central race there. So I've mixed and matched all 3 of those guys. I think Burnes is definitely the cash game play. If you want to go down, Grayson Rodriguez is my favorite guy. I am really, really interested to see what happens with Cole Ragans tonight, because everybody's been on the Cole Ragans train for the last month and a half. He was the pitcher of the month in August. But in his last start, Cole Ragans threw 3 wild pitches in his last inning. He walked 6 guys. He was falling down on his last couple of pitches. And as a Cardinals fan who went through the Rick Ankiel thing back in 2000, and if you're, I'm dating myself a little bit, if you're not familiar with that because you're too young, there's a documentary on the Rick Ankiel downfall, which basically he was a Rookie of the Year pitcher, started a playoff game for the Cardinals, threw 5 wild pitches in one game, and then basically could not find the strike zone for the rest of his career and had to reinvent himself as an outfielder. He had the yips basically. So I'm not saying that it's definitive that Ragans has the yips, but we haven't seen him since that fiasco his last time out, and he's facing Houston. So he would be GPP only for me. I think Grayson Rodriguez, maybe JP France if you're looking to go a little bit cheaper. Some people might be on Tyler Anderson even. I don't think you need to do that on FanDuel. But yeah, Burns, Glasnow, Lopez, and Rodriguez are the 4 guys that I'm mainly targeting tonight.
Well, you said no Anderson on FanDuel. Let's go to DraftKings where they force you to start 2. And Anderson does pair pretty nicely with a guy like Corbin Burns if you're looking to get access to some of the bats. Is he more in play for you there?
Yeah, he's definitely a reasonable SP2 on DraftKings against Detroit. Pretty weak offense. I mean, Anderson's numbers aren't great. He's not going to wow you, but he is only 6.9K on DraftKings. If you're looking to get, some of the high-end power bats in there tonight, you're probably not going to be able to pair like Burns and Lopez and get all the bats that you want because, there is a salary cap. So, yeah, I'm more okay with Anderson on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think that's a nice pairing. Allows you to get access to some of those big power bats, like you mentioned, you're going to want to get into your lineups today. From more of a tournament perspective, you mentioned guys like Grayson Rodriguez, you mentioned Ragans, anyone else, and Andrew Abbott, JP France, Gibson Long as a cheap dart throw. Do these guys make a 150 pool?
Abbott does for sure against the Mets. Gibson Long, I've maybe got in a couple of lineups. They're going to be careful with his pitch count, though. I mean, he had a lot of strikeouts at the minor league level, but he's probably only going to get about 75, 80 pitches. So I don't think there's a huge ceiling there. Abbott, though, I do think is somewhat intriguing. I mean, we know he can rack up Ks when he brings his A stuff. So yeah, I don't hate Abbott. There's probably not a whole lot else for me. I mean, I'm not on Miller against the Dodgers. I mentioned that I'm not on Kershaw. Other guys like Kyle Hendricks and Michaelis, you just don't get any strikeouts with those guys. France, I think, is okay. He's pretty safe, good matchup, but not much of a ceiling there either.
All right. Make sure to keep hitting that like button, guys. Get up to 50 at the end of the show. I'll throw a couple NFL bets for you to use for all you new subscribers signing up to that FanDuel promotion. All right, let's go to offense. Again, different sites. DraftKings, if you're playing there, they have access to Coors. FanDuel does not. Let's forego the Coors game, and we'll talk about that in just a second. What are your favorite offenses in general? A couple reasonable totals. You've got Milwaukee, but there's no Christian Yelich, which is always a big downgrade to that offense, especially towards the bottom of it. It gets a little weak. You've got Houston against Ragans. I don't know. We've got Ragans, at least on DraftKings, being 10% owned. Maybe you can knock out some of those lineups if Houston does well. A couple other good offenses you might want to target. Where are you looking at tonight, Justin?
Yeah, I think Minnesota is probably the number one offense. Obviously, when you're taking Coors out of play, because you look at they've scored 10 runs each of the first 2 games against the White Sox this weekend. They're facing a pitcher in Toussaint who has a massive walk rate. I mean, one of the highest walk rates you'll see. And the White Sox bullpen is terrible. Minnesota's offense doesn't break the bank. And they're, some of those guys are accessible even if you're playing a top end pitcher. So I like Minnesota the most. I'm underweight Milwaukee, particularly with their lineup tonight. Just tough for that team to string hits together. The other teams that I like are the teams that are facing these low strikeout pitchers that can be prone to, if BABIP luck doesn't go their way. And that would be the Phillies against Michaelis, the Cubs against Zach Davies, and the Diamondbacks against Hendricks. I think all 3 of those teams are somewhat interesting from a stack perspective because, you're looking at 2, 3, 4 strikeouts maybe for those opposing pitchers. The Cubs have really struggled this week. They're kind of expensive. I think that takes their ownership down. And Davies is, one of the worst pitchers on the slate. So the Cubs are probably the team I'll be the most overweight on. Not fun for a Cardinal fan to say that, but objectively, that's where I stand tonight. And then I do like Houston as a stack as well. I mean, if you presume that Ragans has just lost the strike zone, There is obviously upside with that offense. I'm not playing a whole lot of Houston individually, but if you're doing like 20, 30 lineups, I think you should probably do a couple of Houston stacks.
All right, let's get to some position by position talk at catcher cards. Probably not on FanDuel. You can mix them in if you wanted to, but more so on DraftKings. If you do the Burns Anderson, let's talk mainly from a cash game perspective here. That's personally what I'm looking at. I couldn't find the money to spend up for a Will Smith. Probably not going to play Rutschman anyway. Contreras I do like, but he was just a little bit too expensive. I'm going sort of down in the tiers, and Alvarez, even against Abbott, I'm looking at Patrick Bailey hitting 6 for the Giants on DraftKings in Coors. Where are you spending on there? And then also, I want to get your thoughts on the Coors game specifically on DraftKings. Where does that rank for you overall?
Yeah, so at catcher, agree. You don't have to play one on FanDuel. Both Contrerases, I think, are fine. Alvarez is a one-off. And Bailey is probably my favorite catcher. He's got the best splits on the Giants against lefties this year. So, but in general, I'm a little bit mellow on the Coors game because you've got the Giants facing Freeland, who's a lefty, and all of those guys that you just never know if there's going to be like a pinch hitter late in the game, like Austin Slater, Paul DeYoung, Mitch Haniger, Flores. You just got guys that if a right-handed reliever comes into the game, even though Flores has hit righties pretty well this year, you just never know when they're going to deploy, Jock Peterson off the bench.
Slater is definitely going to get pinch hit.
Yeah, Slater's obviously the one that usually comes out the most. Throw in the salaries and the pinch hit risk and the ownership. I just don't love it. Colorado, you've got the Giants throwing a bullpen game at them. They're starting a lefty. Kapler's going to mix and match and throw the matchups out at you. And it's just tough to break that down. It's also game 2 of a doubleheader. So, particularly the Rockies at this point, they probably don't care. They're just ready to get home, and their season is, they've got like the second worst record in the National League, or maybe the worst record in the National League. They won the first game, so they got their quota for the day. I don't know. I don't love the Coors game tonight. Obviously you can stack Coors anytime, but I am underweight this evening outside of some one-off bats, and I do like Bailey at catcher.
All right, let's go to first base. A position. Are you finding yourself spending up on? You've got Rowdy Tellez for cheap at both sites. I think he's 2,600 on both sites if you need a cheap one. Do you think this is a position you should be spending up on? Because if you are, Flores may be on DraftKings at 4,900, but these guys they're not just expensive. They're, top of the tier expensive with a Freddie Freeman, a Bryce Harper, your boy Goldschmidt. He's a little cheaper with the splits against that. What do you think we should be doing at first base today?
Yeah, I think you can play that either way. Both Brewers guys, I think, are fine as values. Carlos Santana is pretty affordable as well. He homered twice last night. Not that means he's going to do it again, but you've got Santana hitting third. Tellez, a little bit more boomer bust, hitting sixth. Kirilloff for the Twins is going to continue to grade out as a nice value. He's had a pretty good series. 5 hits in those first 2 games against the White Sox. So I think those are my favorite values. I do really like Freeman, basically for the reason that you mentioned. Whenever the Dodgers are not chalky, it's always interesting to play them because there's so much of a ceiling there. And not that you have to stack them, because if you stack the Smith and Freeman and Betts and all those guys, obviously that's taking up a good portion of your salary cap. But Freeman is the one guy I do really like with his splits against righties. I think most people are going to save at first base tonight. So yeah, Freeman I think is certainly in play as a one-off. Probably not getting there in cash. I think in cash you probably play a Kirilloff or a Santana or a Tellez tonight.
All right, going to second base. Maybe we can split up the sites a little bit because you do have Estrada on DraftKings. Someone I'm probably prioritizing over there. I think he's unlikely to get pinch hit for and grades out pretty well. On DraftKings, you don't have him. You've got Twins. You've got Jorge Polanco. I think he's also fine on DraftKings. But Polanco fits your Twins narrative you were talking about at the start of the show, wanting to get some access to them, and I think that's a good way to start your lineups today.
Yeah, Polanco or Julien, I think both of those guys are absolutely in play tonight. I do like playing a twin at second base, mainly because, I mean, those are clearly the best, like, mid-priced plays. And then if you're looking for something cheaper, there's just not a whole lot there. Like, the guy that rates out the best on DK is Andy Ibanez hitting second. I mean, I don't really love that. Turang, don't really love that. You got other guys maybe that are around the same price, like a Jonathan India, who hasn't been healthy this year. I just don't love a whole lot at this position. Obviously, Altuve against the lefty you can always play, but are you going to pay $6K on DraftKings and 4Ks on FanDuel for Altuve against a pitcher who's been really good? Estrada's fine on DK for sure if you can get there, but yeah, Julien kind of fits a lot of my builds.
Yeah, we'll talk about Royce Lewis, but how many? What has he got? 4 Grand Slams and
66 games.
Yeah, is that a record that can never be broken?
It's got to be close. I mean, it's insane. I laughed when I saw the notification that he hit one last night. Just the dude is mashing and certainly added a little bit more thump to that middle of that Minnesota order for sure.
Yeah. What are in sports? That seems like a record that's pretty hard to be. Like the Cal Ripken baseball record.
Yeah, the Cal Ripken one is just never going to be touched again.
Yeah.
I don't think the hit streak record is ever going to be touched again because
I don't know about that one.
You don't?
I think someone could. That's a lot more accessible. That's more accessible than the Cal Ripken streak.
Well, that's no doubt. Yeah, I mean that's obvious. But I mean, there's so much power. There's no outside of Arise, who hasn't even sniffed maybe half of the record.
Yeah.
There's just so much swing and miss today. Like, I don't know. There's no Tony Gwynn's around anymore.
I can understand. I mean, Corey Seager he's amazing, but a little more power. If you hit it out, it counts too, Justin.
True, but you can do that 56 days in a row.
Yeah, that's also true. Anyway, let's get a little bit back on track. If we're all holding hands with Julien, Polanco, and Estrada, I think Julien or Polanco on FanDuel, you can throw in Estrada on DraftKings. From tournaments,
everybody else becomes a little bit contrarian. I like Kettle Marte, I think, is reasonable in GPPs. You can always play some of those guys with some pop that aren't going to get much ownership tonight.
All right, let's go to third base. Justin, you've got Royce Lewis. He's shortstop eligible on FanDuel as well, I believe. So you're going to want to get him into your lineup over there. But third base DraftKings, for a guy hitting all these grand slams, he's just 4,800. That seems like a reasonable price tag against Tucson tonight. This is the guy you want to prioritize.
Yeah, he's my favorite spend, I think, for sure in cash games tonight. Just really tough to play anybody else, given the way that he's hitting the ball. So, Royce Lewis at third. I think JD Davis is fine on DraftKings where the Coors game is available. Alec Boehm is hitting cleanup for the Phillies, so he would be a guy you could maybe play in the mid-range. Don't mind Arenado against lefties like Muncy. You can always play and against a righty hitting cleanup, but most of those guys are spends. I think this is going to be a spend position for me tonight. Maybe a Michael Garcia or a Matt Vierling as a cheapie, but yeah, I think I want to spend here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Dodgers as a contrarian tournament play. You can see that with Muncy's ownership below 5% when he's basically, him or Royce Lewis, and everyone's going to be funneling to Royce Lewis. Yeah. And I think we might be. I
don't mind Vientos too as a punt. If you need to go cheap, Vientos would be my guy.
You've got what's shorts? What 2,300? He's hitting 9th tonight, so it's a little less of a desirable lineup. If he was hitting higher, maybe you could have done that, but probably not interested in him. Shortstop. I don't know. You spending or saving? I mean, Bobby Witt looks pretty good today, even against France, and Trey Turner. But these guys are very expensive. There's a couple cheap options. You've got Correa, sort of, insert Twins player tonight is going to be reasonably popular. Where does it land for you at the shortstop position?
Yeah, I think on a points per dollar basis, Correa is probably the guy. He's 4K on DraftKings. He's 2.9K on FanDuel. Not having his best year, but hitting fifth in that lineup against a bad pitcher. I think it's 2K of savings on DK. It's 1,100 of savings on FanDuel from Witt. Turner is similarly high priced. Not that you can't play those guys, but it's just tough to get everything you want on the slate. So, Correa, I like Jeremy Pena on FanDuel. He's hitting 8th tonight, so a little bit of a downgrade for him, but he's certainly a guy you could consider, particularly in GPPs. If Zach Neto, the Angels lineup was the only one that wasn't out when we came on the air.
It's still not out.
Yeah. So if Zach Neto's in there, we projecting him to hit second. I mean, he would be okay as a punt as well. Willie Adames will get some ownership, but I'm underweight the Brewers tonight. So, I think Adames is okay, but I don't want to play him in tournaments as a chalk shortstop.
What do you think? I would expect Correa. I'm talking DraftKings, I guess, here specifically. You probably transfer that over to FanDuel.
Yeah.
Correa is cheaper, and we currently have Adames drawing more ownership. I would flip these guys around. I'd have Correa. Correa is probably going to be the highest.
I think Correa will be a little bit higher, but yeah, or at least make them, I think, about even.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's go to the outfield. A couple ways to spend in the outfield today. So if you have to pick one outfielder specifically, let's maybe of all the expensive guys. So let's throw in Jordan, Schwarber, Harper, and let's throw in who's the Carroll. You can only get one in there, right? Because if you are paying up on FanDuel for an elite pitcher, you're probably not going to be able to get all the guys that you want on there. And even on DraftKings, if you use the Anderson Burns combo, you can probably get at least one of these guys into your lineup. But if you only had to pick one, Alvarez or Carroll, probably the two for me. Which one's the guy for you?
Yeah, I would take Carroll probably first, but Arizona is probably the team I'm the most overweight on compared to the field tonight. So if you're not as high on Arizona, I think Schwarber is probably next for me. You look at, just the way he matches up against Michaelis. Schwarber's issue is he occasionally doesn't hit the ball.
Occasionally.
Often doesn't hit the ball. But when he does, it goes a long way. And Michaelis, does not miss a ton of bats. This matchup occurred just a couple weeks ago. Michaelis faced the Phillies and Schwarber hit a home run off of him. So it's just a really good matchup for Schwarber. So I like him for sure in tournaments. Alvarez, I'm a little bit lower on lefty. Tucker has better splits against lefties if you're going lefty with Houston. But, again, I think the stack has plenty of upside. But, I'd probably go Carroll, Schwarber. You can always play guys like Chris Bryant. We already talked about Slater on DraftKings, where that Coors game is available as well. But
yeah, what would be your favorite San Francisco outfielder? So we've got Haniger at 4,300. We've got, I'm just trying to bring it up. Well, actually, it's probably easier if I just do it on Lineup HQ, right on the screen that all of us can see. Slater or Haniger, right? You want the leadoff guy who's, I would say if a righty comes in, he's like at least 50%.
I don't love Slater for that reason.
Yeah. I would play I like Haniger quite a bit. I don't expect him to leave the game.
I think Haniger is fine. They usually don't pinch hit for him. And even Yastrzemski lefty is interesting because, I know he's hitting.
No, he's not leaving.
He's not leaving, right? Yeah, they're going to keep him in there if a righty comes in. So, and his ownership might be down a bit with the 8 spot. So, I don't hate Yastrzemski in a GPP.
And you got a couple other guys. Kepler, 3,900 on DraftKings. He's 2,900 on FanDuel. A very, very good play, in my opinion, today. Almost one of the priorities for me personally. Anyone else you want to talk? You don't need that. Some days we're searching for the $2,000 to $2,500 player on DraftKings. I don't think you really need those guys today.
Yeah, probably not that low. You can live in the 3Ks with some of your values. Seiya Suzuki, I like. Let's see. If you are looking to go super cheap on DK, Nick Martini hitting second for the Reds at 2,800 is probably as cheap as I'll go. Mark Canha's hitting cleanup for the Brewers. Matt Wallner, I think, is interesting with his power in a GPP, and he's at the bottom of the order, so he won't carry as much ownership. I think that's most of them for me tonight.
All right. If you guys want to get questions either into the Discord over on RotoGrinders. You can go to the live stream chat. While you're over there in the Discord, it's popping off. You've got Chiefs Prop Shop. If you're looking for any of the fantasy pick'em sites or pretty much anything having to do with props, you can hang out in there. Or if you're in the NFL channels, college football, baseball, the content providers are generally in there, mixing it up, answering questions throughout the day. Make sure to check that out if you're on Discord. You can also post questions in YouTube, and we'll get to those. Let's see here. BJA Tom in the live stream chat wants to know DraftKings cash, Haniger or Fraley. Haniger's 4,300. Fraley's 4,200. I would play. I mean, Haniger's not having a great season, but Coors Field sort of overrides that for me. I would play Haniger, but you can also play both.
Yeah, I mean, on cash, I think I'd play Haniger. I do like Fraley in tournaments tonight, though.
Yep. I see a couple other people posting questions. We will get to those in just a second. Let's see. Matt Hall wants to know, question for the accountant. How do you treat your fantasy winnings, as income or set it up into an LLC? These are all different questions. The answer, as with all tax questions, Justin, is it depends.
It depends. That's right. That's my favorite answer because I can't be wrong. Slightly more ambiguous than the forecast that your average weatherman can give. No offense to Roth. Roth does fine. But on the TV, you can just say, well, a 50% chance of rain. Okay, I got it. It might rain, it might not. But some people, I think it depends on where you're playing, like whether or not the site will allow you to submit a tax ID document as a LLC or not. So that's a consideration. I have not done that, but I know people who have, and there's certain places you might not be able to play if you do that. But that requires a little bit more depth than we can get into here.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. If you're, I do this between RotoGrinders, playing, gambling, right? This is literally my job. So I would handle it much differently than a hobby player who maybe happens to win a tournament or something like that. So it depends. Consult your local tax attorney, correct, Justin?
Yeah,
or slide into Justin's DMs around tax season. All right, let's see here. What Giants are safest from being pinch hit for? So I'll bring up the Giants lineup. Let's go through this card. So we've got Slater, high pinch hit risk. Estrada, pretty safe in my opinion. I think Flores probably safe. Haniger probably safe. Yastrzemski's hitting 8th, but he's lefty already. I think he's probably safe.
Yeah. Bailey should be safe. I mean, I don't think they're going to pinch it for the catcher. So, maybe not as much risk there on the whole as I would have originally presumed. Matos probably has some pinch hit risk late in the game just because he stinks. DeYoung probably has some pinch hit risk too if a righty comes in. So, Matos, DeYoung, and Slater are probably your 3 biggest risks there.
All right, NBA DFS, the tax people are coming to. We're past tax season. We'll get to the tax questions at the end of the show. Maybe we'll get the answer. Is always with taxes. It depends.
Lose all the money before the end of the year, then you don't have to worry.
Yeah, if you have a good year, bump up the sports betting and DFS in December. Is always a good thing. You're free rolling 30% of your entries sometimes. Anyway, maybe you don't want to do that anyway. Let's see if we got anyone else in here. Home run calls. If we had to pick someone to hit a home run tonight, is copping Royce Lewis? That seems like a reasonable possibility.
That's only if we got to bet somebody to get a grand
I
slam.
like Kepler, Carroll. Anyone on Minnesota seems like a pretty good choice tonight. Do you have anyone else outside of them?
I like. I like this Cubs Diamondbacks game tonight against those low strikeout pitchers, and you've got like Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, and Suzuki are all in like the 600s. Christian Walker is at like 550. Oh, that's probably my favorite from that game. I wouldn't go betting all of Justin. What's that?
Where would one search for that line if we were looking for
let's see. Let me go. let me get scores and odds up with the latest ones because I was just looking at what we had in lineup HQ at that point. So let's see. Props, home runs. All right, so let's see where we can get our best odds right now. Christian Walker plus 560 on FanDuel. Scores and odds, we have his implied probability at plus 376. So that's a 184 point positive benefit. Ian Happ plus 630, also on FanDuel. Dansby Swanson plus 630, also on FanDuel. So FanDuel's got the best odds for all these guys tonight.
Yeah. You know what we need? We need all the games in Mexico City. Remember what? That's even higher elevation.
The 350 foot center field with the huge elevation.
Yeah, let's all move all Major League Baseball games there. With that, we would really never see a hit streak on that because literally everyone would be taught. Even Luis Arraez would be swinging for the fences in that particular game. Justin, any more questions? Let's see. Talk about pitching single entry DraftKings tournament. So he wants to know a little bit more about Lopez. Where would he rank for you in turn? I think Burns with like a Tyler Anderson, Grayson Rodriguez will be the reasonably popular DraftKings build tonight. What about the double premium Burns and Pablo Lopez? What does that lineup look like? Is that giving up too much salary to pitcher?
Depends on who you want to play with your bats. Obviously, I've done it in a couple lineups. It is tough though. Lopez is my second favorite of the spends behind Burns. So if you wanted to play Lopez instead of Burns, particularly in GPPs, I'm okay with that. I like Lopez a little bit better than Glasnow. So yeah, he's fine. Arias homered again today, by the way, 2 days in a row. Maybe they are playing in Mexico City.
Happer Suzuki, this is BJ Tom. Happer Suzuki, DraftKings cash. I would definitely take Hap hitting first versus Suzuki 6. That could be that's a legitimate extra at bat spot right there for Hap, and I'll take that extra at bat cards.
Yeah, I like both of them tonight, so I am fine with either approach.
All right, going to go back to YouTube again. We've crossed the 50 likes, so if you guys want a couple NFL bets, I'll throw a couple at you once we're done here. And any tax questions, we will maybe get to those as well. Andrew Martinez wants to know Cubs and D-backs stacking them. That's definitely something you're on today, Justin.
Absolutely.
I have absolutely no problem. I know the bat likes them. I know our RotoGrinders projections like them. I know you like them. Seems like a pretty reasonable spot to get overweight that game.
Yeah, totally okay with that as well.
The Angels lineup is out. Neto's hitting second. I mean, just look at this lineup from the Angels.
It's got to be bad.
What a disaster their season turned. You know, if they had more help throughout the season, they should have just started at the beginning of the season, going all in, even more so somehow. Although trades in baseball don't happen until the trade deadline, but they're going to lose out on Ohtani. Trout's always injured. This team is garbage for like the next, 5 years, unquestioned to me.
Yeah, they're going to have a problem. They're going to have a rough time, I think, for a while.
I'd rather be a Cardinals fan than an Angels fan.
Great. Set the bar high.
Would you play Neto? A Neto hitting second for 2,900 on DraftKings?
I'm okay with it. I mean,
he's in my DraftKings cash lineup, so I'm definitely okay with it.
Yeah, that position is surprisingly weak tonight. So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
All right. Neto or Rojas? He's got Outman already. I'd play Neto hitting second tonight.
I would as well.
Yeah, then the ninth hitter. Let's see, Carroll or Kirilloff if you had to choose one. Of course, that's not even a question, right?
It is not.
Yeah, we do like Kirilloff as maybe a tournament play overall today. All right, we're basically at lock. If you guys have any questions, let's see. Basically, it's just the Tampa Bay Baltimore game. We'll get through those. But I want to go over some football bets. I've got Justin. I have taken over scores and odds. I have 17 bets up for Sunday. That's sort of, I guess, when I do a lot of. I probably have like 100 bets in for football, but I only put my best ones, my best thoughts up on scores and odds for the people here. A lot of them move. I didn't realize you can get some massive line movement especially in props. But even in money lines and spreads, they move around. It seems like things are really moving around to start the year. Do you have anything personally you're looking at before I get into a couple of mine?
Yeah, I haven't looked at NFL yet because I put in about 5 college football bets today, and including a couple for later tonight. So I don't get to the NFL bets quite as early, and I usually don't get the benefit of all those early lines that are a little bit off. But so that won't be till the morning for me.
Justin, I'm looking at I've already bet football for next week. So I'm way ahead of you on
Rick's
football.
got the week 17 odds out there.
You can reach a little farther down the schedule on those. We do have a baseball question real quick. Walsh or Tellez? If you have to pick one, I'd probably stick with Tellez on that one.
I would as well.
All right. So a couple I'm on. So normally I get on the good side of line movement. But the Tyreek Hill it's moving against me, Justin. I bet this at 83.5. I've since doubled down. It's at 77.5 on DraftKings currently. I don't know why. I mean, this is the Mike McDaniel offense when Tua is healthy, and especially against man coverage. Although the Patriots, sort of why the Eagles struggled a little bit last week. Even the Patriots that always play man, they played a lot of zone against the Eagles. So if they switch it up against Tua and they go back to the zone, some of this won't go through. But Tua is literally against man, like the absolute best passer in the league in almost every statistical category when he's healthy, with McDaniel and Tyreek playing. Tyreek's going over in this one. I don't care what kind of coverage they run out there. He is the absolute alpha in this one. I have no problem. Weather looks like it should be good for this game as well. So Tyreek is one that went against me, and I've since doubled down. I got a couple other. I like the Dolphins -2 in this one. I just think the Dolphins are an actual legitimate Super Bowl contending team to me. Newsflash, Justin, I don't think the Patriots are that at all. I know Mac Jones, I think he's still throwing for yards for week 1, but I think that might come to an end for week 2. So that's a couple. You can correlate them together if you want to too. I've just got so many. The Giants were interesting to me. They opened at 4.5. It went up to like Giants -6. Now it's down to 4. Who's betting the Cardinals at -4 to keep this line all the way down here? I know they're down a couple players on the offensive line, but I mean, who's taking the Cardinals at -4? Who's doing this, Justin? It's certainly not.
It is not going to be me.
Yeah, it's certainly not me. So there's another one. I do like the Giants for that one. Let's see here. Tony, I just gave you a couple NFL bets. I have a 2-unit prop. It's on Scores and Odds. Maybe I'll post it on Twitter tomorrow. I'll leave that for the Scores and Odds subscribers. But yeah, sports betting's great. Check out Fanduel. Sponsor the show. You can get some really nice ones. The Anthony Richardson touchdown was at +210 on Fanduel to open the week, Justin. It's now like +150. So I mean, there's big line movement on touchdown scores. Everything you can get on. And the earlier you can bet, as long as you're not betting, you're trying to get $1,500 down on a prop on, Tuesday night, you're probably not going to be able to do that. But if you're just you're trying to get 50 or $100 down, you can certainly get down on these early lines. I would highly suggest looking at them yourself, or if you're a Scores and Odds sub. I'm in the streets Monday night trying to get the props, trying to get things like that, getting some spread picks up for you guys over there. Anything else you want to talk about, Justin? You want to hit on the tax question or no?
No, save that for another day.
All right, yeah, never the tax question.
Saturday is my day to not think about taxes.
All right, I see Bill T. Dolphins offense rolls again. I am absolutely on board with that one. That is an unstoppable surgical unit led by Tua and Mike McDaniel. And if Tua stays healthy,
you look at all these teams where like the offenses have been slow out of the gate, right? Because none of these quarterbacks play in the preseason anymore. Mahomes wasn't great the first week. Hurts wasn't great the first week.
Mahomes was great. Everyone else on his team sucked.
What's that?
Mahomes
true. Yes. To be fair, yeah. Kadarius Toney kind of cost him about 100 yards. But Lamar wasn't very good. Josh Allen wasn't very good. Hurts wasn't very good. Like Tua was the only top-end quarterback that really blew up in that first week. And, yeah, that's a pretty good sign for that offense.
Ban the cover 2. It's ruining the NFL. The Eagles figured it out. You just run the ball for, 7 yards a carry with DeAndre Swift every play. And if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. So I'm okay with that. The Falcon. Do you think the Falcons were next leveling going to this offense, Justin, where they just run the ball? They forgot about the passing game because Dan Quinn realized every team's going with these little cornerbacks. They're all playing zone, and we're just going to run the ball 100 times a game.
I think that's mainly because his quarterback stinks.
It could be. But, the NFL is interesting. Yards per carry is going up. Yards per pass attempts down. Is it is your worst pass better than your best run? Is basically what the NFL, they're coming to an equilibrium on that, and we'll have to see what sort of wins out. I think this is going to be the season to bear it out. So other than that, everybody, I hope you have a good night. We'll be back for the weekend show. There's no baseball Sunday, but next weekend will be the next weekend show. Appreciate you guys tuning in on the weekend all season long. And Justin for showing up most weeks. I know I'll take a couple weeks off here and there, but there's still baseball during the week. Feel free to tune into all the shows on that. Other than that, have a good night. For Justin, I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we out you.